Here's my creepy pizza delivery story from college. When I was in college, I got a job delivering pizzas late at night. Typically, I would work until 2 a.m. It was a shitty job, and the shop was extremely dirty and unsanitary, as well as falling apart. But I typically made really good tips, so it was worth it. I was 18 at the time, and I'm female. It was summertime in Colorado, so even at night, it was still fairly warm. Important details for later. This was the second weekend on the job, and I was still getting used to it. I'm already a paranoid person, so I preferred just dropping off the pizza, taking my tip, and then leaving right away for the next delivery. I pretty much never went in someone's house, and if I did, I would just step in real quick, but leave the door open. It was pretty close to midnight when I got the delivery to a house on the east side of town. It was supposed to be my last delivery of the night. I pulled up to the house, and it looked pretty normal from the outside. The street was really dark, but I didn't feel uncomfortable. I walked to the door and knocked. This big shirtless old dude with a beer belly answers the door and tells me to come inside. I got weird vibes from him right off the bat. I declined to come in and tried to give him the pizza right there. But then he goes, "Come inside. It's freezing out, and we don't want the cold air coming in." This didn't make sense to me as it was summer. So stupidly, I get nervous and I take one step inside the house, not going all the way through. Then he goes, "No, come all the way in. It's cold out." I should have left at this point, but I was freaked out, not thinking straight. So I went in and he closed both the screen door and the main door behind me. I'm trying to calm myself down, telling myself I'm overreacting. He then yells to his wife that the pizza's here. I could see her in the kitchen cooking, which seemed weird that she ordered pizza but was also cooking. I don't know. I look around their living room and it's filled to the brim with stuffed animals, completely covering the couches, tables, windowsills, everything. Gave me a really weird vibe. Then his wife comes into the living room holding something outstretched in her hand. She walks up to me and I see that it's some kind of bread or cake. She goes, "Eat this banana bread, and don't worry, it's not poisonous." What the fuck? I try to politely decline, lying and saying that I'm on a diet. She just stares at me, still with her hand outstretched, waiting for me to take the bread. I didn't take it, and then she got really upset. She starts yelling at me to eat the bread. I decline again, but this time, I'm not trying to be polite. I tell the couple that I really have to get back to work. I'm still holding the pizzas too, and thinking about just running out the door at this point. She gives up on trying to make me eat the bread, and walks back into the kitchen. Then the man's like, "Let me find some change for your tip." He starts looking around the living room, digging through the couch cushions, trying to find change to give me. I tell him to forget it and I don't need a tip, that he can just take the pizza, but he insists on finding a tip for me. He spends the next several minutes searching his stuffed animal infested living room for change, and I start to think to myself, maybe he's trying to stall me. Most people have the tip ready when I get to their house. I was so worked up at that point that I just tell dude I'm leaving and start to open the door. He took the pizza and gave me a few quarters that he found. I booked it out of there and went back to the shop. I told my supervisor what happened and he didn't seem to care. He just sent me on another delivery. I was pissed. I don't know if that couple was actually creepy or just really socially awkward, but I never delivered to that house again. On my first summer back home, from freshman year of college, I picked up a part-time job delivering pizzas in my town, around 30 minutes from where I lived. The area in rural Georgia is known for having places in the middle of nowhere, and the pizza place whole shtick was that it delivered to even the most remote areas imaginable within the town limits. I could fill books with the weird experiences from that summer, from the call that came in from a long abandoned warehouse to a dog that got excited about the pizza in my hand and accidentally shredded my pants with her claws. But one will always stand out in my mind as the creepiest. It was fairly late at night, around 10:30 p.m., so I was confident at this time that I would be set on no further calls before closing at 11 p.m. However, someone barely managed to miss the cutoff time, and our clerk accepted their order since they were so close. I was given the address and a single box of hot dough and set on my merry little way. The first red flag was the driveway, or rather, the lack thereof. There was a mailbox, but no actual driveway, not even gravel. It was just grass and barely distinguishable trodden pathway that resembled more of a service trail than it did something frequently used. I bumped along, wondering if I was en route to the place, when I saw a slightly above average sized house come over the horizon, horribly dilapidated and completely surrounded with overgrown woods. I guesstimated where the rest of the driveway led and ended up parking in a grassy patch that could have been a walkway just as easily as it could have been the front yard. My headlights were aimed towards the porch, as per company policy. I walk up to the door, but I believe that calling it a door is generous. It was a door frame, alright, but the door itself was a large slab of wood, propped haphazardly against the side of the house, barely covering the entrance. This was red flag number 2. The third and fourth red flag were also the door. This included an A4 sheet of printer paper with the words, "Around back," scribbled in all caps, which was hanging just below the place where someone had self-engraved the door with the title, Manson Family Ranch. Typically, I would not go around the back of the house, especially a shady, unlit house, and especially at night. However, it was my last drop off of the day, and I was ready to get it over with and be on my way home. Against better judgment, I trapezed over the back of the house. The door back here is actually a door, but it's covered with black cobwebs and fresh spider webs. Clearly this door has not been used in some time. I found the cleanest area available and knocked. I counted to 45 and knocked again. There were no lights on in the house, and I could hear no movement from inside. I knocked and counted again, and repeated the sequence 3 more times before I was finally creeped out enough and decided to return to my car. As I turned, I finally heard a voice coming from inside the house, clearly agitated, but I couldn't tell what they were saying. I tried to knock 1 more time, and I was counting, and I heard something in the woods behind me. It started out as just movement deep in the trees, but soon enough I could make out distinct running footsteps coming directly towards me through the brush. As I'm standing there, coming to terms with my impending demise, I follow the direction of the noise to the edge of the woods, which is around 15 feet away from me. In the moonlight, I could clearly see the woman who stepped out. She was relatively old, maybe in her 60s, I would guess. She had long blonde gray hair, which was tangled and matted and hung down past her hips. She was in what looked like to be originally a white nightgown, but at this time it was dingy and closer to beige brown color. She was absolutely barefoot, and her feet were covered with dirt and what had to be blood, presumably due to the fact that she had just sprinted through the prickly woods where there's no trail to be seen. I never learned her name, but I still refer to her as red flag number 5. She stopped short when she saw me and started to shake her head no, eyes wide. I stood there like a terrified deer in the most fucked up headlights ever as she took a few more steps towards me, reaching out to me, fingers pointed. Her voice came out way stronger than mine would have been at that time. You know how southern people can either sound like loving grandmothers or backwoods murderers? Well, she sounded like the latter when she drawled, "Oh, no, honey, no, you get on, you get out of here." I wish I could say I listened, I ran, I left, but I was so in shock at how the events were playing out that my own self-preservation was put on the back burner when I tried to figure out just what in the Kentucky Fried Fuck was happening. She seemed to realize that I was not moving, even if I could not make my mouth move to ask her what was happening, or even what to do with the stupid pizza in my hands. She looked at me like she could have smacked the hell out of me right then and there, and proceeded to deliver red flags 6 through 12. Darling, you hear me? You deaf or dumb? Young girls like you come out here and they don't get to leave. So I finally quit being the white person in a horror movie when I realized that this was not a funny little ghost story. This was a 5'3", 116 pounds me potentially being targeted to be robbed or kidnapped or worse. So I dropped the dumb little pizza, which had serious serial killer toppings by the way, and started running back to my car, which I stupidly left on and unlocked, as was my usual for most of my deliveries. As I neared my car, I heard the slam from behind me. I looked over my shoulder to see the wooden door had been pushed over and had fallen into the porch beneath. As I'm closing into the car door, an older man was limping down the front steps, waving his arms like an airplane runway attendant to me, calling me little bitch, telling me to get out of the fucking car, now. At a loss for what to do, I called out something muttering and shaky along the lines of, "Pizza out back." I floored my dad's shitty late 90s Lexus and somehow managed to avoid the trees on the old trail back to the main road, which was still 12 miles and several turns from the road that actually had a name, let alone painted lines. I reported it to my manager and he said that he would contact the police, but nothing ever came of it that I'm aware of. Either way, this was my first and hopefully last personal encounter with a self-proclaimed Manson family ranch.